Yeah, hi all. In the yesterday session, we have discussed about what's the exception and how to handle the exception using try catch block. In today's session, we are going to discuss about the another block that is finally block. And what's the uses of finally block? Then why we have to use the finally block. If you observe here in this program, in case if you have an exception, then the catch block will execute. If you have an exception, the catch block will execute. If there is no exception, then the try block will not execute. Here, if I place two statements in the try block, so here this statement is problem, if this statement is a problem, but here there is no problem in the second statement. In this try block, fourth line has a problem, and fifth line there is no problem in the fifth line, it has to execute successfully. But when you run, in case if there is a problem in fourth line, then the fifth line also will not execute it. The fifth line also will not execute it, even though it is a correct, it will not execute it. See here, if there is a problem in fourth line, the fifth line will not execute it. See here, third line is executed, and then there was a problem in fourth line, so it was an exception in the fourth line. Then sixth line is executed, but fifth line is not executed. This line is not executed, the sixth line is executed. So what can you understand by this is, there is no guarantee that everything will execute in try block. There is no guarantee that everything will execute in the try block, as well as there is no guarantee that everything will execute in the catch block. See, if there is an exception here, then the catch block will execute it. If there is no exception, then the catch block will not execute it. In try block, if there are 10 lines of code, the exception is at first line, then the catch block will execute, the remaining code of the try block will not execute it. So there is no guarantee that everything will execute, the code execute within the try block or within the catch block. There is no guarantee. But there is some piece of code that must execute irrespective of the exception is occurred or not, such as connection closing. Whether the exception is occur or not, once we open the connection, as a programmer, we are the responsible to close the connection. And file closing. Once we open the file, as a programmer, we are the responsible to close the file. So, irrespective of the exception is occurred or not, there is some piece of code that must execute it. That code will place inside the finally block. The finally block is a block which execute 100% irrespective of the exception is occurred or not. So we will see the example, that is, so here I have an example, the finally block. So this is the finally block. It will look like same as try and catch block. So this is a try block. So within the try block, we have a piece of code, and we have a catch block. Within the catch block, we'll have a piece of code, and then we have a finally block. The finally block will have a piece of code. Now, if there is something goes wrong in try block, then only the catch block will execute it. Otherwise, the catch block will not execute it. If something goes wrong in 14th line of the code, then the 15th, 16th, and 17th line of the code will not execute it. It will throw an exception and it will execute the catch block. But there is some piece of code that must execute. That is, just for example, I'm sending money for one account to other account, from account X to Y. So when I'm transferring the money, intermediately there was some network problem. Because of that network problem, so the money is not credited to Y account, but it is debited from X account. The money is debited from X account. Because of some intermediate network problem, the money is not credited to the Y account. Then what's the problem? Then how we have to handle this? So here there is some piece of code that must execute. That is, in case intermediately it is struck, if something goes wrong, then there is a that must execute it. So that piece of code I will place in finally block. I will place in finally block. So that is here the finally block, irrespective of the exception is occurred or not, this finally block will get connection objects are opened in try block or in top of the program, or if you open any files or if you open any connection, that must execute, that must close. So in case the connection closing or file closing code, if you place inside the catch block, then if there is no exception, the catch block will not execute. So we cannot close the connection, we cannot file. In case if you place the connection closing and file closing code inside the try block, in case if something goes wrong in top line of the connection closing, then the remaining lines of code will not execute it. Then immediately it will go to the catch block will not execute. But these are mandatory, it must execute irrespective of the exception is occurred or not. Whether the exception is occurred or not, it must execute. So such type of such type of piece of code will place inside the finally block. See, let us see here. Here I have written the program, that is, so here is something is different. This line of code will read the data from console. It will read the data from console. So, and then here what I'm doing here is, here I'm passing two values. The values are A and B. A and B. So here I have created the scanner object. The usage of the scanner object is, the scanner object will read the values from the console. So the scanner is a class, it's a default class. It is available in java.util package. It is available in java.util package. So I'm creating an object for scanner class. So you know already how to create the object scanner equal to new scanner of. Here system.in is the parameter we have to pass, because this is, we are getting the parameter, we getting the value from system. We are getting the value from system, so that we'll use this object. Then using this object we can read the data. So here int a equals scanner dot next int. What it will do, it will take the value whatever we give in console, and then here b value scanner dot next int. So it will read the value whatever we give from the console and will store in the b. So once we give the a value and b value, here see a is divisible by b, then the result it will print it. So in case if I give the b 0, if something value is divisible by 0, then what happens? Then immediately it will throw an arithmetic exception. Then immediately it doesn't execute this line of code. The result, it will not give the result. Then immediately it will move to the catch block, and then the catch block will get executed. Please don't enter denominator as 0, and then the exception it will print it. So there is some piece of code that must execute, that is for closing the files and closing the connection object. So that piece of code I will place inside the finally block. This code will execute 100% irrespective of the exception is occurred or not. So if you execute it, this program, so just give the right click and run as Java application. So here is asking, the first is open the files and connection object. Open the file and open the connection object. Open the file and open the connection object. The connection object is opened. And please enter the value. So this line of code is executed. And then here I am trying to give the value. When I give the value, the scanner object read the value. Whatever the value I will give, the scanner object will read. So here I am giving 20. And then when I click on enter, then the 20 value will read and save in the A, variable A. Now the value, variable A value is 20, and then please enter the B value. It is asking to enter the B value. B value I am passing 2, and then enter. Now the B value is 2. So now C equal to A by B. A value is the 20, B value is the 2. Now C is 10. So the result is 10. The result is 10. It is printed. And then the exception, no, this code will not execute it because there is no exception here. So the catch block will not execute. Then immediately it will come to the finally block. In the finally block, here I put one statement that is money sending back. Yes, it is executed. Money sending back is executed. And then I put another statement that is closing the file and closing the connection object. Closing the file and closing the connection object. This statement is also executed. See, in case if there is an exception in this line of code, in int C, in this line of code, then the result, this line of code will not execute. Then immediately it will come to the exception block and exception code will execute, and then finally block also will execute. So let us check that condition also. Let's give the run as application. Now please enter the A value. A value is 20. A value is 20. Then please enter the B value. B value is 0. I am passing 0. So if I pass 0, then see, there is an exception, that is after passing 0, then B value I passed it. Then here it did not execute this line of code, C value. Then the result is, see here there is no result. The code did not execute the result. So the 17th line did not execute because here there is an exception. So the 17th line did not execute it. Then immediately it came to the catch block. In catch block, here we have please don't enter denominator as 0. So there is an arithmetic exception here. Then arithmetic exception is given, and then please do not enter denominator as 0. The catch block is executed, and then money sending back, closing the files and closing the connection object. So however the exception is occurred or not, whether the exception is occurred or not, irrespective of the exception is occurred or not, the finally block will execute 100%. So if there is some piece of code that must execute, irrespective of the exception is occurred or not, the piece of code will place inside the finally block. So here see, in try block, this line of code did not execute it. This line of code did not execute it when exception is occurred. So when there is no exception, then the catch block will not execute it. So there is no guarantee that everything will execute inside the try block or inside the catch block. But there is some piece of code that must execute irrespective of the exception is occurred or not. If exception is occurred, then catch block will execute. If there is no exception, then only try block will execute it. But both will not execute it. So there is some piece of code that must execute. Then that piece of code will place inside the finally block. So that is the usage of the finally block. So I hope you understand what's the finally block and what's the usage of this finally block. Okay. And then we have another keyword. We have another keyword, that is throw keyword. In yesterday's session, we have seen throws keyword. So why will use this throws keyword? The throws keyword for handling, this is interrupted exception. The throws keyword is for propagating checked exceptions. So here we are using thread.sleep. So here, if there is no this exception or not will this exception, then immediately here it will throw an unhandled exception type interrupted exception. So the compiler is checking, is there any possibility to get an exception for this line? Yes, when compiler checked, then it is a checked exception. So there is a checked exception. The compiler is checked. Here there is a checked exception possibility to. So we must handle this checked exception. So in order to handle the checked exception, then we have to use throws keyword. And then interrupted exception. This is an interrupted exception. Then this is a throws. Then we have another keyword, that is throw keyword. It is a throws keyword. We have other keyword, throw keyword. What is the usage of this throw keyword? The throw keyword, in case if you want to throw any exception object manually, if you want to throw any exception object manually, then we will use this throw keyword. So see here, I have written the program, that is, if age is less than 18, then I'm throwing one exception, that is throw new arithmetic exception. It is an object, new. When we will use this new arithmetic exception is nothing but we are creating an arithmetic exception object. How will we create an object if there is a test class? So how will we create the object? Just assume there is a class test. How will we create an object? New test is the way of creating an object, right? So this is an object of test class. So here we have arithmetic exception is a class. It's a predefined class provided by Java vendor. If you want to create an object for this class, then we can create object for this class by using new arithmetic exception, and here we are passing the parameter string as a parameter. So now here we are throwing that exception. What exception? Arithmetic exception. Here I will pass, when I call this validate method, so I will pass the age. If age is less than 18, in case if I pass 1 to 17, then immediately it will throw this exception. If age is not less than this 18, then welcome to vote. This line of code will execute it. So this is a method. So inside this validate method, I am validating whether he is capable to vote or not. If age is less than 18, then not valid. He is not valid to vote. If age is greater than 18, then he is valid to vote. And then here I am calling the method, that is throws one validate method. I am passing 15. Validate method, here immediately it will go to here, and age is 15. I am passing age is 15. Now age is 15. 15 less than 18. Yes, it is true. Then immediately it will go and it will throw this exception. That is arithmetic exception not valid. If we give age greater than this, then welcome to vote. So let us execute this program. Just right click and run as Java application. So if you see here, when I pass the age as 15, then immediately it is throwing an exception. That is Exception in thread main, Java land that arithmetic exception not valid. The exception is not valid. This is user defined message. This is a user defined message. I am passing this message not valid. In case if I pass age is 25, if I pass age is 25, 5 age is 25, then what happened? Test throws dot validates. Then immediately it will move to the, it will check where is the validate method. Here there is a validate method, and here we have a parameter. The parameter age parameter I am passing 25. So age is here we are using. So as of now age is 25. 25 less than 18? No. 25 is not less than 18. 25 is the greater than 18. So the if block will not execute. Then immediately it will come to the else block. The else block code will execute it, and then there is no exception here, so that the remaining code, the rest of the code also will execute it. If there is an exception, the rest of the code will not execute, because there is an exception. Immediately to throw an exception, there is no chance of executing the rest of the code. But here there is no exception, so that it is not throwing an exception, so it will execute all lines of code. Now see, welcome to what? Rest of the code. When I pass 25, then it will go and it will check age is less than 25. Now the age is 25. 25 less than 18? No, it is not true. Then it will come to the else block. This code will execute, and then this code also will execute it. If I pass the age is less than 18, so 15, I am passing 15. If I pass 15, then what happened? Here test throws one dot validate. Where is the validate method? It will go here. Here there is a validate method. The value I am passing age is 15. So here it will check if 15 less than 18. Yes, it is true. Then immediately it will throw the exception. The exception is arithmetic exception. Arithmetic exception. If exception is occurred, the remaining code will not execute it. See now, exception is occurred, so the remaining code will not execute it. So here the exception is occurred. That is java.lang arithmetic exception not valid. So whatever the exception we will pass, that exception it will throw. Here I have created arithmetic exception object. In case if I pass null pointer exception, in case if I pass null pointer exception, it is null pointer exception. Valid. So now it will throw the null pointer exception. See, exception in thread main java.lang.null pointer exception not valid. So whatever the exception I want to throw, I can throw the exception. But this exception is predefined exception. Only message is user defined message. Only this message is user defined message. Actually here there is no exception here. There is no exception here. I am throwing the exception wantedly. Manually I am throwing an exception using throw keyword. So in case if I do not throw manually, then see, just I put one is you are not allowed. You are not allowed. If I put this message, just it's enough. If age is less than 18, yes, this message will display. That is, you are not allowed. See here, you are not allowed rest of the code. Because no exception, so after this line of the executed, then this line of code also executed. But now what I am doing, I am throwing the exception wantedly. In case if age is less than 18, then I am throwing an exception. Manually I am throwing an exception. So if I want to throw exception manually, then we will use this throw keyword. We will use this throw keyword. So here, if age is less than 18, now I am passing 15. Now manually I am throwing an exception, so that now it will throw an exception. That is Java.lang null pointer exception not valid. So I hope you understand what is the throw keyword. The usage of this throw keyword is, if you want to throw exception manually, then we'll use throw keyword. Use throw keyword. Vignesh,
Yeah, yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
you please off your mic. So I'm
Yeah,
getting disturbance.
yeah, yes, sir. Hello.
Yes, please off your mic.
Oh, okay, sir.
No, not yet. You didn't. Mute your mic. Once when you click on the symbol, yes. Okay. So this is the usage of throw keyword. Then the next concept in exceptions is user defined exceptions or custom exceptions. So we can create our own exception. See here we are throwing the the predefined exception. Null pointer exception is the predefined exception. In yesterday session you have seen the list of exceptions. So this null pointer exception, arithmetic exception, and number format exception, class cost exception, these all exceptions are predefined exceptions. Those are provided by Java vendor. Then similarly, we can create our own defined exception classes, user defined exception classes, custom exceptions. So let us see how we will create the custom exceptions. See, in yesterday's session, we have seen the hierarchy of an exception. In the hierarchy of an exception, throwable is the superclass for all the exception error, and then exception is the superclass for runtime exception and IO exceptions and interrupted exception. All the exceptions are child classes for exception class. Now runtime exception is a superclass for null pointer exception and arithmetic exception, class cost exception. So it means that all the exception class properties are get inherited to its child class, right? If there is a superclass and child class, in inheritance concept, what did you learn in inheritance concept? Whatever the superclass has a properties, all the properties will get inherited to the subclass. If there are two classes, one is the parent class, one is the child class, then child class get inherited by the parent class using extends keyword. Right. If there are two classes, one is class A and class B. So A, class A extends, class A extends B. Class A extends B. Then what's the meaning of this? So whatever the properties are available in B all get inherited to the A. It means all the behavior of B, all the behavior of B will get inherited to the A. All the behavior of B will get inherited to the A. See, for example, I have a class that is bank. Class bank. Bank is my class name. Class bank. So what the bank will have the operations? The bank will have deposit. Why deposit? This is one operation. And what the other operation will have? Withdrawal. Void withdrawal. Is the other operation. This is already we have discussed, but once again, explaining you in case if you forget, you get to remember it. And then I have another class, that is class HDFC. HDFC is another class. Now, if I want to get all the behaviors of bank, what I have to do? When I use extends bank, then what happens? What are the properties of this HDFC bank? The HDFC bank will get inherited the behavior of bank. Now, HDFC is also act as a bank because this is the behavior. What is the behavior of the bank? Deposit is the behavior, withdraw is the behavior. This is the behavior of the bank. Then when it get inherited, then HDFC also will get the same behavior of the bank. See, generally inherited whatever our parents will have some behavior, the same behavior will get inherited. As a child will get inherited. So similarly here, whatever the behavior of this bank will get inherited to the HDFC bank. So I hope you understand. In case if you want to get other class behavior, then what we have to do? We must inherit that class. Why I am telling you this is because here we are going to create an custom exception, user defined exception. So here I have created a class. ToYoung is my class name. Extends runtime exception. Then what happened? Whatever the runtime exception is not created by us. Runtime exception is the predefined exception. It is available in java.lang package. So when I use a class, so when there is no this extends runtime exception, now this is a normal class. When I use extends runtime exception, then what happens here is all the behaviors of runtime exception will get inherited to the ToYoung exception. Now this class is also behave as a exception class. If it is not extended by this class, now this is not a exception class. It doesn't behave as exception. Now. When I get inherited by runtime exception, when it get inherited by runtime exception class, then this class also will act as a exception class. Now I made this ToYoung exception class is also as a exception class. Now this class always act as a exception. So that I have created another class, that is a ToOld exception. This is a normal class. Then it extends the runtime exception. So when it extends the runtime exception has some behavior, that is exceptional behavior. All exceptional behaviors will get inherited to the ToOld exception class. So now I have created two classes. One is the ToYoung exception class, other one is the ToOld exception class. Two classes. But these two classes are the exception classes, like arithmetic exception. So previously we have thrown the arithmetic exception. How could you throw this arithmetic exception? Because this is the exception defined by the Java vendor. It's provided by the Java vendor. So that I could create an object for this class. So if you want to create class, first, if you want to create an object, first it should have a class. If there is no class, then obviously there is no object. So first we require a class. So arithmetic exception is a exception class provided by Java vendor. Now I want to create my own exception class. If I want to create my own exception class, so whatever the class I create, that never be an exception class. If I want to make that class as a exception class, then my class must extend the exception. My class must inherit by any of the exception class. So if my class inherit by direct exception, not a runtime exception, if direct exception, if it inherited by direct exception, now this exception act as a checked exception. This exception act as a